She-Hulk Attorney at Law on Disney Plus is undoubtedly one of the worst things coming out on streaming right now. And if it wasn't for Rings of Power on Amazon Prime, well, it might be the undisputed worst of the worst. But fortunately for Disney Plus, they do have some competition for that title with Rings of Power. But when it comes to She-Hulk, we've seen the audience reject it. We've seen a seeming uninterest from so many people in Phase 4 of the MCU, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And the most recent episode, which is probably maybe about 22, 23 minutes of actual TV, of actual story, nothing happened. There was a little court battle over the name of She-Hulk, and She-Hulk decided that she was going to go get new clothes, and you didn't even get to see the clothes. It's leaving audiences bored as hell, and like we've discussed many times, it's supposed to be a comedy, but it's just not funny. A massive problem. And now we're finding out some information about what's going on at Marvel, what's going on with the MCU that might explain some of these things. This is from the Critical Drinker. So apparently, She-Hulk was supposed to release before Ms. Marvel, but the first cut was so monumental shit, they had to swap them around to allow for emergency reshoots. Think about that. What we're seeing now is the improved version, and that's a pretty scary thing for a lot of people to understand that. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are going to ask, how does Critical Drinker know this? What are his sources? I would just suggest, this is just a guess for me. I don't know what Critical Drinker, who's telling him these things. I would just go to Critical Drinker's channel and see if maybe he's done any interviews with people that might be in the know of what's going on behind the scenes at She-Hulk or Ms. Marvel. That's just a guess of mine. Cannot be sure. But suffice to say, I think it's coming from a pretty good source that's worked for Marvel. But the idea that She-Hulk was just that bad, that they had to do these emergency reshoots, switch all these things around, that makes sense because so much of this story does not line up. For instance, when you have Wong come in early and they're like, hey, you can't just break people out of jail like that. Now we need to talk to you, and he just leaves. But then an episode or two later, he has no problem walking into a courtroom and nobody says a fucking word to him. It doesn't make any sense. The way that some people are portrayed, some of these characters, obviously nearly all the men are either incompetent or buffoons or something like that. But sometimes they change their personalities almost in between episodes. This show is so fucking bad. And like I said, if it weren't for Rings of Power, taking some of the shine away from She-Hulk as far as the worst thing streaming goes, people would probably be shitting on this a lot more than they are. But as it is, with Rings of Power out there, it's kind of tough to ignore. But now we're finally getting to see how many people are tuning into this. And we heard when it first came out, we saw the Samba TV results. We realized that compared to the rest of what we saw from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it didn't look like She-Hulk had a very good premiere at all. A lot of people were not interested in watching She-Hulk. And now that we have the top 10 streaming ratings for the week that She-Hulk premiered, interestingly enough, She-Hulk is not on there. Did not make the cut. So at least they had less than 395 million minutes viewed. That's a definitive answer to that right there. We don't know exactly how many minutes viewed it had. We don't know exactly the ratings because Nielsen only gives us the top 10. But this is the first thing that's out on Disney Plus, whether it's Star Wars or Marvel or MCU, that has not cracked the top 10. Even something like Ms. Marvel debuted in the top 10, and that got terrible ratings. Ms. Marvel ended up debuting at number 10 with 249 million minutes viewed. Now, potentially, She-Hulk could have had more than that. I would expect it to have a little bit more than that, but it wasn't enough to break the top 10. This is where we're at with She-Hulk. It's a complete and total mess. Nobody's watching it. You've seen the audience reaction. It's clear that the audience isn't interested in this, that it's certainly not resonating with the core MCU audience as they continue to push more and more fans away. So the idea that there was a bunch of reshoots, that there was a bunch of changes to this, that is not surprising at all. And again, I would just say take a look at Critical Drinker and who he's talked to before. But this lines up with everything we heard because She-Hulk was supposed to release before Ms. Marvel. What happened? She-Hulk was so fucking bad. They needed to do all this other stuff to try to fix it. So they pushed Ms. Marvel up. They put it on this deadline that they could not meet, which is one of the reasons so much of the CGI looked really bad, because they were rushing through Ms. Marvel. So it affected Ms. Marvel, and obviously it hasn't fixed She-Hulk by delaying it in any way. Just imagine, look what My Nerdy Home says, the improved version is still terrible. Imagine how bad it was before they tried to fix it. Let me know what you think about the newest revelations for She-Hulk Attorney at Law on Disney Plus. Smash a like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I'll talk to you later. thanks for watching, everyone. And a huge shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. Want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram? Check out the description below. You'll find links to my P.O. box and my Patreon as well. And I'll talk to you guys later.